Michael had always lived what people called a simple, steady life. He married his childhood sweetheart, Clara, and together they built a home that stood like a picture of stability. For over 15 years, they lived quietly, raising their son, attending church, and working long hours to provide for the family. To anyone looking in from the outside, Michael had everything a man could want: loyalty, comfort, and respect. But beneath the surface, Michael's heart had grown restless. It started with the small things. Clara became busy with responsibilities, her health grew weaker, and her laughter came less often. Michael told himself he deserved more excitement, more affection, more fire. So when the younger woman appeared in his life, he barely resisted. Her name was Selene, and she seemed almost too perfect. She was radiant, her skin flawless, her hair shimmering as though it carried light inside. When she smiled, Michael felt something stir in him that had long been dormant. She looked young, too young for him, yet she carried an aura of power that made him feel alive. Michael first met her at a business dinner. She introduced herself with a voice that sounded like music, every word flowing smoothly as if rehearsed by angels. "I've been watching you," she said in a half-whisper when they were alone. Michael laughed awkwardly, assuming she was joking. But her eyes held him in place, strange, hypnotic eyes that seemed to change color as he stared. That night, Michael drove home distracted. Clara was waiting up, her face tired but kind. She asked him about his evening, but his answers were short. He felt irritated at her questions, though she had only wanted to connect. Already, Selene's presence had carved a wound between husband and wife. Days turned into weeks. Selene found her way into his routines, appearing at his office, calling at odd hours, always with that disarming smile. She told him things no one else should know: his private worries, his childhood memories, even the recurring dreams he never spoke of. When he asked how she knew, she only answered, "Some of us see deeper than others." Michael should have been alarmed. Instead, he was fascinated. He convinced himself this was destiny, that Selene was meant to bring him the passion and wonder his life lacked. The more time he spent with her, the more distant he became at home. Clara noticed. She noticed the late nights, the secretive texts, the way Michael looked at her without really seeing her anymore. She tried to reach him with patience, but each attempt felt like shouting into a void. "Michael, talk to me," she pleaded one evening. He snapped back, "You don't understand me anymore." The words pierced Clara like a knife. Soon, Michael made his decision. One night, he packed a small bag. Clara, standing in the doorway, begged him to stay, tears streaking her face. Their son woke and watched from the staircase, confused and scared. Michael avoided both their eyes. "I can't do this anymore," he muttered. "I need something different." He left that night and never looked back. Selene welcomed him with open arms, her embrace intoxicating. For a moment, he believed he had chosen freedom, but deep inside, a shadow of unease lingered. There was something about her presence, something beyond beauty, something unnatural. When she kissed him, he felt both pleasure and fear, as if he were giving up more than just his loyalty to Clara. Over time, the strangeness grew harder to ignore. Selene rarely ate, and when she did, it was always at night and never in public. She avoided bright light, claiming it irritated her skin. Michael once woke in the middle of the night to find her staring at him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She didn't blink. She didn't move. When he gasped, she only smiled and whispered, "Go back to sleep, love. You're safe with me." But he didn't feel safe. Still, Michael clung to her. Pride kept him from admitting he had made a mistake, and desire chained him to her side. Clara's face haunted his dreams, but Selene's presence consumed his waking hours. One evening, while walking with her near the edge of town, he noticed people staring, not at him but at her. Their expressions weren't admiration, they were fear. An old woman crossed herself and muttered a prayer under her breath as they passed. Michael asked Selene about it, but she only laughed. Humans are always afraid of what they don't understand. Her words chilled him. Humans? Why had she said it like that, separating herself from him? Michael pushed the thought aside, but deep inside, he knew something was wrong. He had left behind love, trust, and family for a woman who wasn't even human. And sooner than he expected, he would discover the terrible cost of his choice. At first, Michael tried to ignore the strangeness. He told himself love was supposed to feel different, unsettling, even overwhelming. He had broken a marriage, abandoned a wife who loved him, and turned his son's life upside down. So if unease weighed on his chest, surely it was guilt, not Selene. But the little cracks kept widening. One morning he woke early and found Selene standing by the window, staring at the sunrise. The orange light crept across her face, and he noticed her skin almost shimmered unnaturally, like it was rejecting the warmth. She pulled the curtains shut quickly, her smile strained. "I don't like mornings," she said. "I prefer the night. The night is freer." Her words unsettled him, but he laughed nervously, pretending it didn't matter. Days passed, and Michael noticed she never seemed to tire, never yawned, never slept deeply. He would drift drift into restless dreams and wake hours later to find her wide awake, eyes glinting, lips curved into that same knowing smile. Sometimes he caught her murmuring in a language he couldn't recognize, her voice low, rhythmic, almost like a chant. When he asked her about it, she only said, "Old prayers from a place you wouldn't know." Michael brushed it aside, but a seed of fear began to grow. Then came the hunger. At first, he thought she was simply picky. She avoided food he cooked, pushing the plates away with a faint grimace. She claimed she wasn't hungry, yet he noticed her lips glistening red when she returned from her evening walks. Sometimes he thought he saw faint stains on her hands, but when he asked, she'd laugh and say, "Paint, don't worry yourself." But the paint never smelled like paint. One night, he followed her. Selene slipped out silently after dusk, her movements unnaturally graceful. Michael trailed behind at a distance, his heart pounding. She walked down empty streets into an abandoned lot near the woods. There, under the dim light of the moon, he saw her kneel. Another figure approached, some stray animal, maybe a fox or a dog. Michael squinted. Selene reached out with slow, tender hands. For a moment, she looked almost angelic. Then, with a suddenness that made Michael choke on his breath, she grabbed the creature and sank her teeth into it. Michael stumbled back, a gasp escaping him. Selene lifted her head slowly, her mouth stained dark. Her eyes glowed faintly, catching his in the shadows. She smiled. "Michael," she called softly, her voice unnervingly calm. "You shouldn't follow me. You'll only see things you can't understand." Terror flooded him, but shame kept him from running. He waited for her to return home, silent and shaking. She didn't explain, and he didn't ask again. The next days, Michael tried to convince himself it wasn't real. Maybe he was tired. Maybe it was a trick of the light. He wanted to believe Selene was just different, not dangerous. But deep down, he knew. The townspeople knew too. At the market, whispers followed them. Shopkeepers avoided Selene's eyes. Children pointed before their mothers yanked them away. Once an old man muttered, "God help him," as Michael passed with her arm looped through his. At night, his dreams grew darker. He dreamed of Clara crying in their empty home, his son calling out for him, shadows pulling him further away. And always, Selene's glowing eyes hovered in the darkness, whispering promises of eternity. One evening, Clara called him. It was the first time he'd heard her voice in weeks. It was soft, weary. "Michael," she said, "our son asked about you today. He wants to know if you're ever coming back." Her words pierced through him, but before he could answer, Selene appeared at his side. She plucked the phone from his hand, pressed the button, and ended the call. Her smile was sharp, her voice cold. "You don't need to hear her voice anymore. I'm all you need." That night when Michael tried to sleep, he heard Selene whispering beside him. He strained his ears, his body frozen. Her words weren't for him. They were prayers or perhaps incantations in that strange language again. Then he caught a few English words between the murmurs. "Bind him, forever." His blood ran cold. Michael realized the truth he had been avoiding. Selene hadn't simply taken him away from Clara. She had bound him, drawn him into something darker, something beyond human. And he feared that leaving her now might no longer be possible. Michael's fear gnawed at him like a parasite. By day, he pretended everything was fine, but by night, the truth bled through the cracks. Selene was not normal. She was not human. And no matter how much he wanted to deny it, every glance, every whisper, every shadow confirmed it. One evening, while Selene bathed in their dimly lit apartment, Michael searched her belongings. He had to know what she was hiding. She carried very little, no family photos, no documents, no childhood trinkets. But in the bottom of her closet, under a bundle of silk scarves, he found a small leather-bound book. Its cover was cracked, its pages yellowed. The writing inside was in that same strange language she whispered at night. Drawings filled the margins, creatures with glowing eyes, symbols that made Michael's skin crawl, and human figures kneeling before them. As he flipped through, he noticed a picture that froze him in place. It was a sketch of a man with chains around his neck, standing beside a radiant woman with Selene's face. Above it, words had been scrawled in English. "The offering." Michael slammed the book shut, his hands trembling. That was what she wanted, him as an offering. Not a husband, not a lover, but something to possess. When Selene emerged from the bathroom, steam following her like mist, she noticed the book out of place. For the first time since he'd met her, her perfect smile faltered. "You touched my things," she said, her voice flat. Michael's throat tightened. "What are you?" he whispered. Selene's expression shifted. For a moment, she looked almost sad. Then she walked toward him, her movements smooth and inhumanly graceful. "I told you before, Michael, I'm not like the others. I am older than you can imagine. I've walked through centuries, searching for the one who would belong to me. And now, I've found you." Michael stumbled back. "This is insane. You're not. This isn't love." Her eyes glowed faintly. "Love, human love fades. Yours was already fading when you met me. I offer you something eternal, a life beyond decay, beyond death. But there is a price, and you've already started to pay it." Michael's mind reeled. Eternal life, a price, chains around his neck. He felt like the ground beneath him was vanishing. That night, he didn't sleep. Selene lay beside him, humming softly, but Michael stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment. He thought of Clara, her warmth, her patience, her tired but honest smile. He thought of his son, the little boy who still asked where his father had gone, and he realized with a crushing weight that he had traded them for a nightmare dressed in beauty. But could he leave now? Was escape even possible? The next morning, Michael tried. He told Selene he needed to visit the office. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing, but let him go. As soon as he was outside, he drove, not to work, but to Clara's house. His hands shook on the steering wheel the entire way. When Clara opened the door, her eyes widened. She looked thinner, older, grief etched into her face. Their son peeked from behind her legs, uncertain. Clara, Michael began, his voice cracking. I made a mistake, I need to. But before he could finish, the air grew cold. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the porch. Clara's face drained of color as Selene's voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere at once. Michael, the voice purred, you don't leave me. He turned, and there she was, standing at the end of the street, her figure too still, too sharp, like a statue come to life. Her eyes glowed even in the daylight. Clara gasped, pulling their son close. What is that? She whispered. Michael's heart thundered. Stay inside, he shouted, pushing them back into the house. Selene began walking toward him, every step deliberate. Neighbors peered through curtains, whispering. Michael felt his knees weaken. He had brought this into their lives. You belong to me, Selene said, her voice slicing the air. You can't run back to your little family. You made your choice. Michael's fear turned to rage. He shouted, no, I was blind, but I see now. You're not love, you're a curse. For the first time, Selene's smile faded completely. Her eyes blazed. The air around her shimmered with a dark energy that made Michael's skin crawl. And he realized with sinking dread, choosing Clara again would mean war. Selene was not going to let him go. The neighborhood had never been so silent. Curtains twitched as Selene advanced, her beauty twisting into something sharp and menacing. Michael's legs trembled, but he stood his ground in front of Clara's house. He would not let Selene step inside. He had already destroyed enough of his family's peace. He would not hand them over to her. Michael, Selene said softly, almost tenderly, though her eyes glowed like burning coals. You promised me forever. I promised nothing, he shouted back. I was a fool. I see that now. You're not love, you're death. Her lips curled into a smile that carried no warmth. Death is only the beginning. Don't you see? You could have been eternal, but you still cling to your weak human ties. Behind him, Clara was pulling their son away from the door, whispering prayers. Michael could feel her fear like a weight on his back. Leave them alone, he barked. Take me if that's what you want, just not them. Selene's eyes flicked toward the window where Clara clutched their boy. They're already marked. You brought me into their lives, Michael. They cannot escape the shadow of what you chose. Michael's blood ran cold. He lunged forward, desperate to distract her, but Selene lifted one pale hand. Instantly, an invisible force slammed into him, knocking him onto the lawn. His chest burned as if pressed down by a heavy stone. He gasped, fighting for air, while Selene glided closer. You thought you could leave, she whispered. You thought love was a game you could play, then run back when you lost. No, Michael, there are consequences. She leaned down, her face inches from his. For a split second, Michael saw her true form beneath the disguise, a face too smooth, eyes black as voids, teeth sharp and gleaming. He recoiled, terror clutching his throat. Stop! Clara's voice rang out from the doorway. She clutched a Bible in trembling hands, her voice quivering as she read aloud. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Selene's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing. She hissed like steam escaping a kettle. Foolish woman. But the words seemed to crack the air, if only for a moment. Michael scrambled up, dragging Clara and their son back into the house. He slammed the door, locking it, though locks meant nothing against Selene. Still, the wooden barrier gave him a shred of courage. Michael, Clara said through tears, what have you brought into our lives? He couldn't look at her, his shame was too heavy. Something not human. I thought she loved me. I was wrong. Their son clung to Clara's side, his small voice trembling. Daddy, I'm scared. Michael crouched, holding him tight. I know, buddy, I'm scared too, but I won't let her hurt you. Outside, Selene's laughter echoed, chilling and hollow. You can hide behind your little house, your little prayers, but you can't escape me, Michael. You opened the door, and now it will never close. The lights flickered. The air grew cold, frost forming on the windows. Michael grabbed a crucifix that hung by the door and held it tightly. For the first time in his life, he prayed with desperation. Hours passed. Selene didn't force her way inside. She lingered, her presence pressing against the house like a storm. Michael sat awake all night, clutching the crucifix, his eyes burning with exhaustion. When dawn finally came, Selene was gone, or at least her figure had vanished from the street. But Michael knew she wasn't truly gone. She was waiting, watching. He turned to Clara. I'm sorry, he said, voice breaking. I left you for her. I thought I wanted something better, but she isn't even human. She wants me bound to her forever. Clara's eyes, red from tears, met his. And now she wants us too. Michael felt the crushing truth. His mistake had cursed not just himself, but the people he loved most. The chains Selene spoke of weren't only for him. They were wrapping around his family, slowly, invisibly. I have to fight her, he said. Clara shook her head. How can you fight something like that? Michael didn't know, but he knew one thing. If he didn't try, Selene would consume everything. He had chosen her once out of weakness. Now, for the sake of his family, he would have to choose strength, even if it meant facing a monster who had already claimed part of his soul. And in the shadows outside, Selene's whisper curled through the air. You can fight, Michael, but you will never win. Michael couldn't shake Selene's whisper. You will never win. It echoed in his mind even as the sun rose higher and ordinary life stirred outside. Birds sang, cars passed, neighbors watered lawns, but inside the house the air was heavy with dread. Clara barely spoke, her son clung to her side, and Michael's hands wouldn't stop trembling. He knew Selene would return. If he wanted any chance of protecting his family, he had to learn what she was and how to stop her. Michael went to the library. Clara begged him not to go, but he insisted. Knowledge is the only weapon I have, he said. She looked at him with tired, broken eyes, but didn't argue. The local library was nearly empty. He pored over dusty folklore books, scanning for anything that resembled Selene. He read about witches, demons, spirits of the night, but none of the stories fully matched. His frustration grew until an old librarian approached, a man with white hair and sharp, suspicious eyes. You're looking in the wrong section, the librarian murmured, as though he had been watching. Michael froze. What do you mean? The old man pointed toward a locked glass cabinet. Not fairy tales, histories, the kind people don't like to believe. Michael hesitated. Please help me. There's a woman. She isn't normal. She drinks blood. The librarian's expression darkened. He unlocked the cabinet, pulling out a heavy, leather-bound volume. Dust swirled as he set it on the table. The title was faded, but Michael could make out 2 words, Night Brides. The old man opened the book, flipping through pages filled with drawings of women, beautiful, radiant, yet monstrous in the eyes. Beside them stood men in chains. They've been around for centuries, the librarian whispered. They appear young and beautiful, offering love, passion, even immortality. But they're not human. They're parasites. They bind men to them, feeding not only on blood but on their souls. Once chosen, a man belongs to her forever. He is the offering. Michael's chest tightened. The drawing looked exactly like what he had found in Selene's hidden book. Is there a way to stop her? He asked desperately. The librarian closed the book, shaking his head. Only one. You must sever the bond before it completes. If too much of your life is given to her, you'll never be free. She'll own you, body and soul. How do I sever it? The old man leaned closer. Confront her where she is strongest, where she first bound you. But you'll need more than courage. You'll need faith. These creatures feed on weakness, on desire. If you face her with fear, she'll devour you. If you face her with truth, maybe you have a chance. Michael left the library clutching the warning like a lifeline. His mind replayed every moment with Selene. Where had she bound him? Was it the night he first gave himself to her, when he walked out on Clara? Was it when he accepted her kiss, ignoring the voice of his conscience? He drove home, his heart heavy. Clara met him at the door, worry etched deep into her face. What did you find? She asked. Michael swallowed. She's not just a monster, she's something older, a night bride, and she's bound me to her. That's why she won't let go. Clara's lips trembled, but she stayed silent. Their son piped up innocently. Daddy, is the bad lady coming back? Michael knelt, hugging him tightly. Yes, buddy, but when she does, I'll be ready this time. That night, Michael sat alone in the dark, the crucifix in his hands, rehearsing the words he might say. He thought of the life he had thrown away for Selene's promises, the home he had shattered, the love he had betrayed. Shame burned, but beneath it, a small ember of strength glowed. If Selene fed on weakness, then maybe strength could starve her. Around midnight, the lights flickered. The air grew cold. Michael's heart pounded as he heard her voice outside, low and melodic. Michael, Selene called, her tone sweet. Come out, don't hide from me, we belong together. He tightened his grip on the crucifix. Clara and their son huddled upstairs, whispering prayers. Michael stood in the living room, his body trembling but his resolve firm. He walked to the door, opened it slowly, and stepped into the night. Selene stood in the street, her beauty dazzling, her smile radiant. But Michael saw the truth beneath the mask now, the predator lurking behind the charm. You can't run from me, she said softly. I'm not running, Michael replied, his voice steadier than he felt. I'm ending this. Her smile widened, sharp as a blade. We'll see. The battle for his soul had begun. Michael stood on the porch, crucifix in hand, as Selene glided closer. The night around her seemed to bend, as though even the shadows bowed to her presence. Her beauty shimmered unnaturally, but Michael was no longer blinded. He saw the monster lurking beneath the flawless skin. Michael, she said, her voice like honey, don't do this. You wanted me. You begged for me. You left your wife, your son for me. You belong to me." His chest tightened, but he forced the words out. "I was weak, I was selfish, but I don't belong to you, not anymore." Her eyes narrowed, glowing faintly. "Do you think waving a little cross will save you? Do you think prayers can undo what you already gave me?" Michael's hands trembled, but he held the crucifix higher. "You don't own me. I made a mistake, but mistakes don't have to be forever." Selini's smile twisted. "Then let me show you forever." With unnatural speed, she lunged. Michael stumbled back, thrusting the crucifix forward. Her body recoiled violently, a hiss escaping her throat, sharp and furious. Her eyes blazed red as she snarled. "Faith makes you bold, but faith can break." Michael's knees wobbled, but he remembered the librarian's words. "If you face her with fear, she'll devour you. If you face her with truth, maybe you have a chance." He shouted, his voice breaking. "I don't love you. You were never love. You were temptation, and I was too blind to see it. But I choose my family. I choose the life I betrayed." Selini screamed, her voice splitting the night like shattered glass. The ground seemed to quake beneath them, the wind whipping violently. Neighbors, lights flicked on as dogs barked and children cried. Selini's perfect face warped, her beauty unraveling. Her skin rippled, her teeth lengthened, and her eyes turned bottomless black. "You dare reject me?" she thundered. "After all I gave you." Michael lifted the crucifix higher, clutching it with every ounce of strength he had left. "You gave me nothing but emptiness, and now I take back what's mine, my soul, my life, my family." Selini shrieked, lunging again, but the crucifix blazed with an unseen light. She slammed into an invisible barrier, her form convulsing. Smoke rose from her skin as she screamed in fury. "You can't break the bond." Michael shouted back, his voice trembling but fierce. "In the name of God, I break it now. You have no power over me." Her scream pierced the night as her body writhed, twisting in agony. For a moment, Michael feared she might still overcome him. But then, with one final howl, her form shattered into mist, dissolving into the wind. The night fell silent. Michael collapsed onto the porch, gasping for breath, his body shaking. Clara rushed out, her son clinging to her. Tears streamed down her face as she knelt beside him. "She's gone," Michael whispered hoarsely. "It's over." Clara searched his eyes. "Is it really over?" Michael looked at the crucifix in his hand, still warm, still glowing faintly. "Yes," he said, his voice heavy with certainty. "The bond is broken." For the first time in weeks, the air felt lighter. The shadows no longer pressed in. Their son hugged Michael tightly, whispering, "Daddy, you came back." Michael held him close, tears finally breaking free. "I'll never leave again, I promise." The days that followed were not easy. Michael had to face the damage he had caused, Clara's trust shattered, his son's innocence wounded. Healing would take time, maybe years, but he was determined. He had stared into darkness and chosen the light, and that choice gave him strength. At night, Michael sometimes woke in a sweat, hearing echoes of Selini's laughter. But when he turned, Clara was there, her breathing steady, her warmth real. He would hold her hand, whisper an apology, and remind himself he was home. Selini was gone. The night bride had lost her hold. But deep inside, Michael knew the battle had left scars that would never fully fade. He had learned the most painful lesson of his life. Desire can blind, temptation can destroy, and not everything that looks like love is love. He had traded his family for a promise of passion, and in the end, he nearly lost his soul. Now, with his family beside him, Michael vowed to never let shadows lure him again. For he knew too well, sometimes beauty hides a monster, and sometimes the greatest prison is the one we build with our own choices.